last week, the energy price cap rose by 10%, meaning most people, 80% of homes in England, Scotland and Wales, will pay 10% more on your bills.
Well, many of you are worried about how you're going to pay for that increase this winter. Plus, there's a lot of confusion about whether you should switch now to a fixed tariff on your energy bills. Don't worry, Martin is here to help. And we've also invited 3 viewers into the studio. They're going to get a Martin Lewis makeover of their energy bills. So let's introduce them to you. We have VJ Jane from Dartford in Kent, who was on a fixed dual tariff which ended in April, and since then his bills have shot up. Next to VJ, Kat Sims, busy mum from South Harrow, been on a standard variable rate with the same company for the past few years. What does she do now? And Phil Daly from Loggerheads in Staffordshire has seen his energy bills double from what they were 2 years ago. So, Martin, they all need your help. What's the plan?
Well, I'm going to go over and say hello. Hello. What I want to do now is I'm going to start you off. So the first thing we need to do is we need to gather the data. The best way to do that is to go onto a comparison site. We want one that's whole of market by default. In other words, it doesn't hide tariffs that don't pay them. So we're going to put you on one of those. I've got wonderful Sally, who's part of my personal team, who's going to be going through that with you. So we're going to gather that and we're going to see exactly what your particular needs are, because who's cheapest for you depends on where you live and how much you use. There is no one cheapest. It is always on where you live and how much you use. You two are both on the standard variable, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yes. How long have you been on that? How long have you... That's the price cap. You're on the price cap. So you went up 10% last week. How long have you been on that?
Since early in the year, about April time.
And you came off a fix?
Correct. Yeah.
What about you, Kat?
I'm going to say I honestly don't know. I think a couple of years, maybe.
So, OK. So since the energy crisis, have you switched at all?
No, we've not done anything. I have not even had a chance to think about it.
So, look, very simple to anybody out there who's wondering if you're on the price cap. If you haven't moved to a special tariff or switched company, you are on a price cap tariff. If you're not on a fix, in most cases, you're on a price cap tariff. Now, Phil, you've got slightly different ideas, haven't you, about what you want?
Yeah, I was looking at the Agile tariff.
You're with Octopus, are you, then?
Yeah.
OK, so the Agile tariff is quite a sophisticated tariff where the price changes every day. I still want you to do a comparison, because what's important to understand is we shouldn't be comparing to what you're on, the Agile tariff, which is a special tariff. We should compare to what are the cheapest deals out there at the moment. Should you do that or the Agile tariff, not should you stay where you are? Because apathy is not allowed on this sofa, people. We will be acting. Susanna.
Thanks very much indeed, Martin. We are going to get each of the 3 viewers their own laptop so that you can have a look at all the information and make a decision. Kat Sims, busy working mum of 2, has been on a standard variable rate with EDF for the past few years. Alongside Kat, VJ Jane, who lives in a 4-bedroom property with his wife and 2 sons. He's on a variable dual tariff, and his bills have gone up by more than £70 a month. And on the other side, Phil Daly lives with his mum, who has dementia. And Phil's bills have doubled over the past 2 years, even though he's desperately trying to use less energy at home. So, Martin, 20 minutes ago, you and your team started looking at whether these 3 lovely viewers should fix or not, whether they should switch energy suppliers. Do you want to talk through
absolutely.
What you've discovered? But I wonder whether first we should just have a quick chat to these guys. So we haven't really heard very much from you after 7. Kat, what stopped you up till now taking action?
Honestly, I am a busy mum of 2. I work, and if we've survived the day, the thought then of going onto my energy site and finding a password that I've forgotten, it all just feels like too much, and it just gets pushed down.
However, how long did it just take you in reality? How long?
I have to say, I'm embarrassed at how quick it was. It was, I mean, less than 3 minutes for me to get a list of comparisons.
Busy, but there's not that busy, and we're going to come to the savings in a moment. And can I just say, I know we say me and my team did it, and all we did is just because we got, Wi-Fi issues in here. You put your own details in. We put you on a comparison site that's whole of market by default. Most comparison sites hide those that don't pay them. That's what the whole of market by default means. So we put you on one of those. You've plugged your details in, and we can start to have a look. VJ, it was easy, wasn't it?
It was really easy. I thought it would take me 10, 15, 20 minutes, but it literally took 2 minutes. And the only thing I had to look up was my usage to get the exact figure. It gave me estimated figures, which were actually pretty close, but that's what I had to look
So if you can, you should always put the kilowatt hours in from your annual usage on your bill. That gives you the most accurate comparison. But if you don't have that, even if you don't know what your bills are in pounds, you can just put in how many bedrooms, and the estimate's close enough that you might not get a perfect answer, but you'll be getting a better answer. I've come over here because I want to see what you've got. Let's have a look at VJ first. So you're on a price cap tariff, but 80% of the UK are on price cap tariffs. Both of you are on price cap tariffs.
Just to explain, Martin, what is a price cap tariff?
So if you are on your company's default tariff, basically you haven't done anything in a year or two, or you're fixed-ended and you've done nothing, or you've moved to a new house, you're on the standard variable, non-fixed tariff, then it's price capped, which that means the regulator says it can't charge more than a certain amount for standing charges and a certain amount for unit rates. And everybody here is currently on a price cap tariff. The vast majority of you are on a price cap tariff. Basically, if you're not on a fix, there are a few nuances, but the vast majority of you are on a price cap tariff. So, VJ, if you can just tell us what the saving is there.
So the saving is £346 per year.
Which is a 13% decrease, and that is fixing, so then you get a guarantee that you know the rate. Now, the difference between when I was here 2 weeks ago and now is 2 weeks ago when people were comparing, they were comparing to the pre-rise price. Now it's a much easier comparison because you're comparing it to today's actual price, which is why now you can see on the comparison a £346 saving, and your cheapest, it's OVO Energy in your case. It depends where you live and what you use. That's why you go on a comparison site. But there's Octopus not far below there.
And VJ, have you locked that in?
He hasn't done it yet.
OK.
We haven't let him do it yet.
All right. I feel a bit nervous because I feel like these companies are going to withdraw these deals.
Think partly because demand of us doing this today may mean some of them go by later in the day. That's why I'm worried about it. And your cheapest is?
I've saved £291 a year.
Which is a 14% saving. Now, the most important thing to explain to you is that is compared to the current price cap. But the price cap moves over 3 years, so that's an annualised estimate if the current price cap stayed. So I've got a graph I need to show people now.
Yeah.
So let's bring this graph up. Here we go. Hopefully it's going to appear. This is the energy price cap graph. Now, we're looking at the black line here. It went up 10% last week.
Yes.
The black line here are the current predictions. It is predicted the January price cap will go up by just under 1% from where it is right now. Now, we're over halfway through the assessment period for that price cap, so that's starting to firm up. The further out you go, the more crystal ball gazing. Next April, it's looking like it'll come down 0.6%, and then next July come down 1.8%. But still, you're going to be pretty close to the current price cap. Now, they've got this little line here. This is where the prediction was 2 weeks ago. And as you can see, one of the reasons for doing this again now is those predictions are higher. That's because of what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in the Middle East, and because long-term weather forecast predictions are colder than they thought it would be. So the prediction of the future price cap has gone up in just 2 weeks. But the most important thing for you, quite interesting this, if you take an average over the year and you factor in seasonal variations, don't worry, I've done it for you, you don't need to do that, then what we're actually saying is on average over the next year, the price cap will be almost exactly where it is right now if those predictions are correct. So the comparison that you've got there with the current price cap is actually very likely to be a real comparison over the next year, and you're fixing over a year. Yeah. So that is pretty accurate. But the further out we go, the more crystal ball gazing.
Got it.
So are you two going to go for those fixes?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think I am.
Okie dokie.
Can I just to...
Sure.
Because there's so much information, and I have enormous sympathy with what Kat said, which is that, you know, you're working, you're managing a family, it feels like you're being flooded with information. So just to clarify, the best bit of advice, if you're right now thinking, oh, it's all too much and I'd rather just stay where I am and do what's happening, how does somebody watching, thinking that, get to the position Kat's now in?
Bring that graphic up, right? Staying where you are means your price has gone up and stays up.
Yeah.
The doing nothing is why I call it a pants cap. That is the backstop, the maximum you're going to be charged. So the doing nothing option is a very poor option currently. It can change in future. Look, I like to explain the rationale behind what I'm doing to people because I feel journalistically it's important to understand where I'm coming from and the assumptions that I'm making. You want me to cut this into one sentence? Go find the cheapest fix you can on a comparison site and lock in making sure it's cheaper than the price cap and it's showing a saving. Go find the cheapest fix you can on a whole-of-market comparison site and lock in, as long as it's cheaper than you're currently paying now, for a saving. That's the safest and easiest thing to do.
And just
Yeah.
For someone who's never been on a whole-of-market price comparison website, does that website, that graph, that table, show you what the price cap is and what you're going to save?
The right ones do.
OK, fine.
And
OK, as long as that information...
I can't tell you which ones to use.
Because I think people think, oh, I'm going to have lots of different bits of information, but you've discovered it's all there.
Yeah, I mean, it would have taken me 1 minute to do it if I didn't look up my bill and get the usage figures, and then it took me 2 minutes. It's that easy.
So get the usage figures. That's
Phil,
useful to know.
You're in a very similar situation. You're on a price cap tariff, and we've got a saving for you there, which is... if you want to tell us?
340 a year.
340 quid a year. But you are on Octopus, and Octopus has a couple of special tariffs, the Tracker and the Agile. And you're interested in the Agile, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Now, the Agile tariff, its price, its electricity only moves every 30 minutes based on wholesale rates. So it's why it's called Agile. It can be extremely cheap. What's your thought on that? Why are you thinking of that?
Well, I looked at the information, but he says, you know, if you've got, like, solar panels and all these things, and I haven't got all that equipment, is it still good for me if I haven't got solar panels and all the other sort of stuff?
So here you go. I've got here the prices for London for the Agile tariff. If you're... Now, on a price cap, you're paying 24p per kilowatt hour to use electricity. 24p, remember that. When you're using Agile at 4 in the morning... it's down to under 10p, so it's half the price cap, less than half. When you're using Agile at 4 in the afternoon, it's 34p, so it's 50% more than the price cap. So if you can shift the bulk of your usage to overnight, right, and some people with storage heaters or are heating the houses in a different way, or electric vehicle charging, although they're a special electric vehicle, can do that, then Agile can be incredibly competitive and people can make huge savings. But I call it a sophisticated user's tariff because you have to know what you're doing and be monitoring the prices.
Yeah.
And in peak times, it's very expensive. So the question's really to you, can you shift your energy usage so most of it is during the cheaper periods?
I mean, things like washing machines and dishwashers, I can obviously shift out and put them on overnight. But obviously, cooking, you can't, you know.
No.
Yeah.
No, you can't. And what you would want to do is avoid doing anything that's high use. And a cooker, remember, is a 1,000 or 2,000 kilowatt appliance. That uses a lot of energy. Air fryers, for just 1 or 2 people, is cheaper. That's why, because they're lower wattage. Look, many people on the Agile swear by it. They think it's absolutely brilliant and they have much, much lower bills, but they know what they're doing. So I think it's a confidence issue. If you know... I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a great tariff. But you have to be prepared that there's a risk, because it moves every half hour, that if wholesale rates go up, your rates are going to go up really quickly.
Yeah.
Right, OK.
And you compare it to the fix, which is your safer option. You know exactly what you're paying for the next year, and it's you're saving 13% on what you're currently paying, according to your comparison.
So useful. Phil, thank you very much indeed, and good luck with that decision. And also, well done, VJ and Kat. Sounds like... I mean, and also, what I love is that you've made it so simple for other people watching, because I totally sympathise. People feel overwhelmed. Just a quick question to you, Martin. But we're talking about appliances. Is there a very simple switch we can make, which is to switch off appliances?
Yeah, I mean, switch them off. The standby, most modern appliances on standby don't use as much as they used to use, so it isn't that expensive, but of course switching them off is important. I think the thing to understand is all appliances have a wattage, right? So 1,000 watts is 1 kilowatt. And I talked about the price per kilowatt hour. So that means if you use 1,000 watt, a 1 kilowatt appliance for an hour, you're using a kilowatt hour, and it'll cost you on the price cap 25p. So something with a lower wattage used for less time, 100 watts for 10 minutes, is going to cost you, you know, I've just put myself into it now. It's going to cost you 2.4p divided by 6. It's going to cost you about half a p to use. If you're using a 2 kilowatt appliance for an hour, it's going to cost you 50p to use. So know your wattages. The lower your wattage and the shorter you use it, the better. Though some things like cookers, they're not always on, so it gets a bit more complicated. So no, there's no simple way, because that wasn't simple. But there is a way.
Right, we're a week on from the 10% energy price cap rise, and we've been asking you to get in touch this morning with your questions for Martin about bills. But before we get to those, we're going to remind you the situation with Kat and VJ who've come back into the studio this morning because you were given a live Martin Lewis money makeover with your energy tariffs. Kat, you explained that previously you hadn't looked at what you might do with your energy bill, despite the fact you knew it was going up 10%, because you thought you'd be overwhelmed with the information either that you had to have at your fingertips or that you would find online. What was the experience like?
I have to say, I'm actually embarrassed at how easy it was. It was so quick. I would say it probably took a minute, couple of minutes for me to get a comparison of different suppliers up and managed to save £291 a year.
So significant and
Really
worth
significant.
every second of that minute it took.
Worth, of course, remembering for everyone, when we're talking about savings, in fact, you're probably not going to see more money coming in. You're just going to stop more money going out because we're forsaking the rise. And what we do, all I did with them is I put you on a comparison site that's whole of market by default. We put in your details, put in your usage, put your name and address in, and it does the calculation for you and tell you who's cheapest, because who's your exact cheapest depends on where you live and how much you use.
And Vijay, what information did you need when you went onto the whole of market price comparison website?
Well, if I could have gone on and spent just 1 minute and needed nothing that I couldn't give you off the top of my head.
Right.
But I also added in my exact usage by looking at my existing bill. That took about another 30 seconds. So that 2 minutes was all I needed to do everything.
And you're saving?
Nearly £350.
And as you've pointed out, the saving is simply you have gone on to a tariff which means that your bill won't go up.
Well, actually,
by that
in
amount.
their cases, in their particular usage level, they're actually going to see a slight drop compared to the old price cap, a couple of % cheaper. So money in your pocket will, you know.
Yeah.
Let's not worry about that. The most important thing, you're not facing that 10% rise.
Yeah. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
And so glad Martin could help you. And in fact, Martin, you've also helped other people who are watching this morning. Catherine's emailed in. I listened to Martin switch to fixed with Octopus Energy. I'm nearly 83 years old and found it so easy. Monthly direct debit has reduced by almost £20. And, of course, Catherine points out that she won't be getting the £300. And she's presumably referring to the winter fuel allowance. So she says it's going to be very helpful. Thank you.
So I hope this doesn't sound a trite phrase, but there's something out there. If you're watching and let's switch your gran, basically. If you've got a gran or grandpa or an older person who's not that comfortable on the internet, not that comfortable, why not go around, and as long as they trust you and you have a trusted relationship, why not go around, do the comparison with them, for them? Because if they're not getting the help, at least you can help them make sure their bills are lower.
Mark says, this morning I took your advice, went onto a comparison site and after 30 minutes have saved £74 a month.
Oh, 900 quid a year, wow.
Fuel bills. So grateful you got me off my seat and did something about my energy, which I've left for too long.
And a reminder, I mean, watch back to the full explanation, technical explanation before. But in a nutshell, if you're planning to sit on that price cap, let's bring that graph up. If you're planning to sit on that price cap, you will see it's going up and it doesn't look on the predictions like it's coming down anytime soon compared to where it was. A very simple thing, get onto a whole-of-market comparison site, get yourself the cheapest fix possible. As long as it is a saving compared to what you're on right now, if those predictions are right, you will save over the next year and in many cases save quite substantially. That's a non-technical explanation. Watch back for where I go into detail of all the rationale.
So let's get through some more questions.
Yeah.
Andy's got in touch on X. Every time I look at different tariffs, the cheap deals all insist on smart meters being fitted. I don't want this. Are there cheap rates without smart meters?
So if I look on average, and remember it depends where you live, the top 4 fixes at the moment, there's Outfox, The Market, Octopus, OVO and British Gas. Outfox, Octopus and British Gas do not require you to have a smart meter fitted to get their cheapest fixes. So 3 of the 4 do not need a smart meter. It may just be your provider, which is why you need to go and do a comparison and see what else is out there.
John says, when will Ofgem reduce the sky-high standing charges?
Well, people who know I've been one of those leading the campaign on reducing standing charges. I think it's a moral hazard. It's a poll tax on energy use that you're paying over 300 quid a year, even if you don't use any energy. There's a consultation being put out on it. The submissions to that consultation closed on the 26th of September. They're planning to shift some of the standing charge to the unit rate, which causes a problem for high users, vulnerable high users. But that's the nature of it. So I think we're probably still a few months away from an announcement on that, but at least we're in the process now.
Alice says, I have a question on fixing energy bills. At the moment, she's with Octopus on a variable deal and pays on receipt of the bill. She says she's looked for some fixed deals, but they all seem to want her to tie into a direct debit. Can she fix and continue to pay on receipt?
Well, let's remember, payment on receipt of bills is 7% more expensive than monthly direct debit. You always pay more. So you can pay by monthly direct debit, where your usage is smoothed over the year, or some allow you to pay variable direct debit, where you just pay the month's usage, but you pay it by direct debit, not paying cash. Both of those are cheaper. So I would strongly suggest you move to direct debit, one of those two. If you don't want to, of the 4 cheapest fixes, British Gas is the only one that will allow you to have cash payments, not monthly direct debits. So that's the cheapest fix that allows you on payment in receipt of bills, is the British Gas fixed tariff 12-month version 15.
Kate says, would you say it's better to fix for a year or for 2 years?
I don't know.
No.
And nobody knows. So bring that graph up again. Sorry, I keep needing it. Look, all the predictions out there for the moment only go ahead 1 year. It is simply too volatile market to predict any further ahead. Now, the cheapest 2-year fixes at the moment, you're paying quite a premium over 1 year, and we don't have any data of where it's going to be in 2 years. The hope is energy prices will come down a bit from where they are. Now, if you're very risk-averse and just going, I just don't want to risk it being catastrophic like it happened a couple of years ago, then a 2-year fix protects you from price rises, but you'll probably pay more for it with hindsight. We just don't know. So I'm sticking to talking about 1-year fixes because I don't have the data to be able to give you an answer on 2-year fixes. I think for most people, 1-year fix is enough, but if you're really risk-averse, go for 2 years.
Alan says, I'm currently on a variable rate tariff with Octopus, only pay 7 pence per kilowatt hour for charging my electric vehicle. Would I still get this EV rate if I changed to a fixed tariff?
So I think from memory, OVO and Scottish Power's fixed tariff have an EV add-on. You'll have to double-check that because that's quite a tough question. So there are some specific EV tariffs, most of them are variable, but OVO and Scottish Power have fixed tariffs where you can then select their EV-specific charge, where you only get charged a lower rate overnight for charging your electric vehicle. So you may be able to fix and keep an EV tariff.
And Sally, close to home in the Good Morning Britain gallery, is taking full advantage of the fact you're here this morning to ask, if you are in a fixed-rate contract, can you switch at any point?
No.
Or do you have to stay until the end of the term?
You can legally switch at any point, but there are normally early exit penalties if you leave before. But this is important for everyone to know. From within 50 days of the end of your fix, so literally day 49 to go and beyond, they cannot legally charge you early exit penalties. So lots of people are saying, my fix ends, say, in middle of December. Well, if you're in the middle of December, count back 49 days, which will be what, the end of October-ish? And from that point onwards, you are free to switch without an early exit penalty. So if it's right for you and the new fix is cheaper than the old fix, you may want to go early. If you're fixing before 49 days, 50 days, Sally, you can ask me afterwards. You're in the gallery, it's fine. But if you're switching before 50 days, then you'll want to factor in the early exit penalties, which are specific to your tariff, on the saving to see whether it is worthwhile.
Fantastic. Martin, thank you very much indeed. VJ and Kat, thank you. So glad we could help you out this morning.